Hello, good afternoon, my listening friends, and welcome back to the DeFi Collective. I'm Robert Vaughn, and we're here with Alex Jewell, and this is the DeFi Collective, where we cover all things having to do with decentralized finance, blockchain, crypto, liquidity pools, you name it. If it has to do with blockchain, we cover it. So today we have a great show, and we cover subjects based on what we hear from you. We have an email address, the deficollective@gmail.com, and that's the deficollective@gmail.com. And people write in and say, hey, why don't you cover this? Or what do you think about this? So we've been getting a lot of inquiries regarding music, blockchain, music, decentralized music, so forth. So today we're going to talk a little bit about decentralized music, the platforms, and also what decentralized music actually is. We'll talk about music NFTs, and we're also going to talk a little bit about Spotify, which is sort of like the opposite of where we're going with this. So Alex, decentralized music, what is that about,
man? The idea is that instead of trusting some centralized platform to house your music, to protect your music, and to determine distribution of your music and how you get paid for your music and all of these things that artists traditionally have had to rely on these platforms for. Instead of that, it reverses the flow of ownership, right? This goes back to the theme that is already always at the top of the show. Right. Because once again, an artist can own their work, right? And what it means to is that then they can have a direct relationship with their audience, with their fans. And so it creates creator economies around their music. And through blockchain, because it tokenizes those relationships, it tokenizes their art, and it creates scarcity around that experience too. And this is what a lot of people feel has been lost in the streaming economy, because you end up with a lot of quantity over quality. You end up with on-demand music that people enjoy, they kind of put on as background music, but there's no longer this experience around like discovering the commodity of music, right? Discovering the experience of music and owning that experience and having that unique experience with it. And so this creator economy merged with Web3 and metaverse and things that we'll get to. That's really what decentralization of music is all about, is return of ownership to the artist, return of ownership of that experience to the audience, and really facilitating their relationship in a new way.
And away from the labels.
Right.
Away from the centralization.
You don't need a label in the middle of that.
You don't need a label, right. And just a little background. I've been involved in the music business for a few years, and the music business worldwide makes about $45 to $50 billion a year. $45 to $50 billion a year, which is nothing to sneeze at. I mean, that's a lot of money, and unfortunately, only 12% of that money goes to artists. Most business models, for instance, if you look at baseball or the NBA or the NFL, their business model is roughly 50% of the earnings go to the players. That's why players, quarterbacks now, get $500 million, like Patrick Mahomes, $50 million a year for 10 years. And he had so much money, he had to buy part of the baseball team to cut his taxes because he got too much money. So he took $100 million and bought part of the baseball team. But unlike the NFL, the NBA, music doesn't return a lot of the money to the artists. That's why the artists, they stream, you get what, 0.023 of a cent for every 1,000 streams. So it's something ridiculous. You can stream on Spotify, you can have 1 million streams, and I guess you get maybe $7,000, and by the time you pay everybody, the people who are involved in making music, maybe you come out with $2,000 or $3,000. That's for 1 million stream. That's a lot of stream. That's a lot of people listen to your music for a couple grand. I mean, that's, you could probably play in front of 1 million people. By the time you get that little pittance. But, so decentralized music platforms and decentralized music, like everything else that's decentralized, is reversing the flow of ownership, to the creators and to the users. For instance, there are various platforms, and one is Audius. There's another one called Foundation, Zora, and someone mentioned DistroKid. Does DistroKid do decentralized music now? I wasn't aware of that, but maybe they do. But anyway, these are platforms where you can make an NFT. You can place your music on a platform, and what they call what's called an IPFS, interplanetary file system. And what it is, it's like a peer-to-peer network for sharing and storing and sharing data, where the data is now on a central computer, at Epic Records or something like that. It's on a bunch of different servers all around the world. It's you can put music up that you can uniquely identify each file in a global space. So if you want to hear, a song by Alex, you can, access the song just like you can on any platform. Instantaneously you have the song. Now, sort of the next iteration of this, and Alex, we had talked about this before, but there's a site called Audius, and what they're talking about, all these sites are they're still kind of like middlemen because they provide a service, but unlike a record company, instead of taking 88%, they typically take 5 to 12% for providing a service. But, eventually, we had talked about this before, Alex, you could put your song on a blockchain and you could have a smart contract that said every time Bob listens to the song, it costs him 1/20th of a cent. So, I would have a wallet, and every time I played your song, the money would get transferred to you, and there'd be no middleman. And I mean, ideally, that's kind of where you want to see this go. But I guess there has to be some sort of network in between to sort of, but I don't know if there has to be a network. If there's a smart contract that exists on a blockchain, there really doesn't have to be a network. There doesn't have to be a middleman.
The blockchain is a network, right?
Yeah, the blockchain is a network, yeah.
Yeah. So, and Audius is interesting. You have Deadmau5, who's, obviously been huge in EDM scene. You have Blau, which is one of his friends. Blau's another DJ. Deadmau5 and Blau have a pretty big stake in Audius. They might have even been part of the founding members of the company. But
yeah, they are. I think they are. I think that they are the founding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've actually had conversations with both of them on Clubhouse in NFT rooms. They've been around the NFT space outside of just music for a very long time. I think Blau recently sold like $17 million worth of NFTs in like a weekend. I mean, it's just like, a lot of these artists are creating those relationships with their audiences directly through platforms like this. And I think what's interesting, I really like that you talked about IPFS, because the interplanetary file system is a great example of, people get confused in terms of like what the NFT is, right? They think an NFT is the file itself. It's not. It's sort of the certificate of ownership. And so you think about peer-to-peer file sharing of yesteryear, 10, 15 years ago, you had, of course, Napster was first. You had things like LimeWire that, people were illegally sharing files on peer-to-peer networks, right? And people who remember, you had seeders who were your other nodes on the network that were seeding you chunks of the file, pieces of the file, because there wasn't a centralized server that the government could just take down. They couldn't do anything about file sharing. In fact, some people still use file sharing for things like books and things that they don't want to pay for. Right. And so peer-to-peer file sharing is not a new thing. It's a very old thing that worked really well, regardless of the legal situation. And of course, the fact that artists got screwed when people were, getting their music for free. And then the streaming platforms gave people what they were looking for in the peer-to-peer file sharing, and really made music really accessible, which in some ways was great because you could discover new artists in ways that you could never have before without having to pay a ton of money up front to do so. But it also meant that artists suddenly lost this important connection that they need to have with their audience. And so how do we resolve that, right? Well, we go back to the decentralized file storage itself, which was really brilliant and much more efficient and secure. But now we add this layer of ownership on top to protect the artist and to protect your ownership as somebody who wants to support the artist. And so now blockchain secures the record of ownership of the file, and it allows you to say, I'm the one who bought this token by going to I went to the concert, I had a ticket to go, I got like special perks because I owned an NFT from the artist, I got their album, their special edition album on on NFT, and now like I have that unique record of ownership that breathes life into the relationship that artists and audience need, and that has always existed previous to this internet dystopia that we've ended up in. And that's really the power of the system, is that it combines the power of file sharing with this brand new way of, without record labels, without streaming platforms, with all those, allowing artists and their audiences to connect and share without middlemen. And that's that's really where things are going for Web3.
That is, yeah. And just to give you an example, with a label, if you produce an album with a label, you get roughly, if you write the album and you sing it and you do the music, you do the lyrics, you get about 60% of the price of that album. Now, every album is $10. They use $10 as a standard, for standardization. They sell for more than that because you have overhead. But every album, out of $10, you get 60 cents. So, if you sold, 1 million albums, you get $600,000. But the record label would get $9,400,000. Now,
right.
Granted, they do a lot, but I mean, they're taking 94% of what is made on that album, and that's why you see artists, they sell 10 million albums, and they don't have a lot of money because they're paying back money that the record label fronted them, which is called recoupment. They'll give you money, like Alec comes out with a hit song. You say, "Oh, Alec, you need a Lamborghini? No problem, man. You want this penthouse?
You need a fancy house?
Hey, no problem, dude. How about a couple of Rolexes? How about a couple of Rolexes for you and the wife?"
Right.
And they front you all this money, and then they recoup it back, and you don't make a lot of money. Now, decentralized music platforms, Alex puts his album up, and it's $10, and he gets the whole $10. He writes a smart contract. If you want to hear Alex's music, if you want to buy his music, the album is $10, and that's what he gets. Yeah. Or if you want to stream his music, you say, "Well, I don't like the whole album, but there's 2 songs that I've listened to a lot." So you can stream the 2 songs, and it'll cost you 1/20th of a cent or something, or 2 cents every time you stream it. But the difference is there's no middleman taking a chunk of that change. That money goes directly to Alex.
You can set up subscription models with these platforms too. Subscription models aren't bad, right? If I want to subscribe to Audius and I can pay a monthly amount, there are new NFT protocols that are being developed for what's known as semi-fungible tokens. So let's say that I, connect my wallet, I subscribe with like whatever monthly fee. Now a smart contract, when I go to use it the next time, it charges me for the month, or whatever the case may be. You can set up whatever infrastructure you need code-wise, but I connect my wallet, I pay for the month. Well, now every time that I go to listen to it, it's minting a semi-fungible token as the stream. It's tokenizing that I listen to it, but it's doing so at a price of $0, right? So you can use this ecosystem and package it however you want to, but there's NFTs aren't just this like one-time scarce token. Sometimes they're just the packaging of a specific experience, and those can be like semi-fungible or like semi-unique, or like a stream would be. But it still represents a good data point, and it can represent how an artist gets paid directly, without middlemen in the middle who take the largest cut of what you're paying every month, or what you're paying per stream, or what you're paying to own the album, or what you're paying to own your ticket to their event, et cetera. All of these things that, beyond just the music itself too, represent an ecosystem for artists that are almost as important as the music itself, right? Being able to go do virtual events in the metaverse and listen to Justin Bieber sing and be a part of that because you bought a special NFT album and were able to do that. And now you're creating these really important moments in your life that are immutably on chain. They're things that you own that nobody can challenge. You can't 20 years later say, yeah, I was at that show, and people were like, no, you weren't. And you can like immediately show on chain, yeah, I was. Like, it shows this record of ownership that is never lost. And that's pretty meaningful to people.
And it's an experience, especially if it's a video experience, and that's what the metaverse is about. You can actually perform in the metaverse, in a virtual reality metaverse, and people can enjoy the concert, and you say, oh man, that's kind of, I don't know if that's too cool, but I mean, if you had a chance to, maybe go to a Beatles concert and you could relive that, actually being at a concert at 3D, I think that would be pretty neat, man. Or you were at, I was at BB King's last show, here it is. And he did it at the Leo's Casino or wherever, and you have an experience, a video virtual experience of doing that. That might be something pretty cool to relive,
Right.
And it could allow, maybe I couldn't go to the concert, so maybe I want to see what it was about. So maybe I, $10, I pay $10 to have that experience if I really like the artist,
Right.
And there are a lot of things happening now in the metaverse. I mean, there's people go on dates, it's a virtual reality date. I guess you could get a real phone number from a virtual reality date. I don't know, maybe you can or maybe you can't. But in terms of music, that's sort of the next frontier of music, and it's sort of the next opportunity for revenue. It's the next revenue stream, because as music becomes more decentralized, with money going back to the artists, the creators, with money going back to the creators, like it never has before, and the creators being able to do a show on the metaverse, a 3D show in the metaverse, and people want to say, well, I don't know, that's kind of, it's Taylor Swift, the regular tickets are $300, but you can do a metaverse ticket for like $10. Oh, okay, I'm in, or,
it makes those things more accessible, but it also incentivizes other experiences. So like, let's say you do pay $300 for the in-person show. Well, maybe you get a virtual exclusive based on let's say your ticket was an NFT, and based on having that ticket, now you are also able to unlock a virtual experience that's exclusive to you. And this creates that creator economy, right? A lot of people think that the creator economy is what Marx referred to as fictitious capital, right? That we're sort of in late stage capitalism. At some point, you're just creating capital out of thin air just for the sake of rich people getting richer and poor people getting poorer, and it creates this flow of ownership and money towards the top, right? And of course, we know that decentralization and blockchain do the opposite. But the reality is that a lot of what we would consider capital in a post-capitalistic world, let's say, all you're left with is the creator economy, where you're just left with relationships with creators. Well, a lot of the working class things have been automated or made public, right? So they're no longer capitalism. The idea of economy is not just about money or currency or capital at all. The idea of economy is really more about the exchange of value or meaning, right? How do you apply meaning to those relationships? And this is sort of the perfect technology beyond just currency and beyond just, and it even though it's tokenization for the sake of the technology itself that facilitates the perfect bottom-up relationship where you are connecting with artists in unique and meaningful ways in a digital world that we're moving towards, right? And that's
I
a
give
pretty
an
interesting
example. Say for instance, Beyonce puts on a hell of a concert. You went to a Beyonce concert, and you paid $300 for the ticket. Well, along with that ticket, maybe you get tickets to access an NFT. So maybe you can relive that experience. Maybe you also, maybe $50 of that was for an NFT. You can also relive that experience. And that might be something you see, oh man, that concert, man, with her and Jay-Z and, you know, whoever else they have with them. I know one time she had 2 Chainz and somebody else, but I guess it was like a hell of a blowout concert, and that might be something that you want to relive at some time, or maybe you want to share it with somebody. I said, oh man, there's the Beyonce concert. Yeah, let's check it out. And that's an experience. That's something you could experience more than one time, which I think
you never lose it. It's not going to be in some box,
right,
thrown away.
Yeah,
you lose it. Maybe you left it at a house you moved out of. This doesn't work that way, right? You don't end up losing this somewhere on the internet or whatever. This is attached to your record of ownership, your wallets, or and that's pretty powerful too. That's an immutable record. Here's an example of a project that I helped with, and it's not explicitly music, but it is audio.
Mm-hmm.
And they were working on these like virtual therapy sessions. Okay. And it was actually like thematic too. It was around like, there's a shaman experience that people believe in where like shaman of a certain tribe would go into a cave in isolation for a certain number of years as part of their training. And they would come out through that isolation. They would come out and sort of experience life in a very meaningful way. And it's part of this tribe. And so they captured that idea of isolation and building on that isolation of what you're exposed to in terms of audio and visual. And it's packaged in like this, therapeutic way that has a lot of research behind it. There are some people from Apple and stuff that were behind this project, but all of those audio moments, those clips of you having those breakthroughs, or you kind of coming to terms with certain parts of your life or what you understand about life, and in those therapeutic moments, those are captured as NFTs, and then they're layered upon other layers of your experiences, and those are NFTs. And then like as groups, right, the collective, the importance of the collective having those experiences together as a part of rejuvenating society, those are NFTs, and they're layered and can be experienced that way. But what's one of the interesting plays that they wanted to have post experience is being able to capture those NFTs and relive them with your therapist or your psychologist as a means of going back in the moment that you had and understanding what the breakthrough was, or what you understood about your past, or like what you understand about yourself, and being able to relive those with your psychologist. That's amazing, right? To be able to take that and capture that and then relive it with an expert. Obviously some of that sounds a little woo woo, but the reality is that you can imagine that in a much more objective sense around the importance of capturing moments in your life that when used correctly can really be meaningful later on. And there's no way to lose it, right? You're always own it. And somebody else's, you don't have to trust some centralized database of somebody else to
you maintain ownership of your experience, unlike what happens when you go on social media and all your data is collected, and what they've done is they've commodified human experience, your human experience, right. and they collect that data and they sell it, and I would just, musicians, people in the music business, I mean, this is kind of where it's going. I mean, it's going there already. You can look up decentralized music platforms, and there's a ton of them already. Yeah. So this is something that's happening now. And you can create your own NFT of your video or your song, and you can create an NFT, a non-fungible token of your song, and then you can put it on, you can sell it. Somebody may want to buy it. You can put it on an auction site. OpenSea, I guess, is a real popular music NFT platform. And the thing about NFTs or non-fungible tokens is, say I do a video, an NFT, and I put it on the site, and it's it's a cool song or whatever, but 18 months down the road it becomes this huge hit, because also hit songs are usually around for a long time before it comes. Now, say it becomes a huge hit. Well, all of a sudden, that NFT there's a lot of value in it. It's sort of like, I use the Mona Lisa example. You can have a picture of a Mona Lisa, but when you rather have the real thing, somebody's got the real thing, and then somebody's got a pitch, and the print in the picture is not the real thing, and so NFT is like having the real thing, and that could, say for instance, if it's a hit or you get real popular, those NFTs become, more valuable. It's like I'm sure if somebody's got NFTs of Whitney when she first started singing, those are probably worth a lot of money now. And the thing about NFTs, non-fungible tokens, is that, when you make an NFT, you create a file that you want to place on a platform or for auction or for sale. Every time it gets sold, say, I put an NFT up of a video, and I say it's just cost $1. Well, yeah, hey, somebody will buy it for $1. But then the song becomes real popular. Well, now somebody says, I'll give you 50 grand for that. Well, now it's worth 50 grand, so it's based on the value, is based on what someone's willing to pay for it. Like there was Martin Shkreli, the guy that is in jail now. He was, what was he, the guy that jacked up the price on insulin or something? Like,
yes, yeah, he was the one who artificially, or was it EpiPens? It was like either
EpiPens,
insulin. Yeah, it was either insulin or EpiPens. Yeah,
he increased the price from like $40 to $600. So, which is pretty low. But he bought an album.
Wu-Tang. Was that the Wu-Tang?
Yeah, it was an unreleased album for $1 million. Now, if he were to issue NFTs for each one of those songs, I guarantee each one would probably be worth $1 million, or a lot of money. But that's sort of what an NFT does. And see, every time an NFT gets sold, say I sell mine for $1 and Alex buys it for 50 grand. Well, the NFT comes with a smart contract that's saying every time it gets sold, I get 10%.
Right.
So Alex buys it for 50 grand, I get 5 grand, I get 10% of that. Somebody else says, oh no, it's worth a lot more than that. When Alex sells it, or somebody else pays 100 grand for it, well, I get 10% of that. So every time it gets traded, I get a commission. So that's another advantage of NFTs. It's kind of like residual income. Especially if you're a working musician, you're constantly coming out with new music. People are going to want to collect, have some collectible music. And you could theoretically make a song one time and never make it again, and say, this is a song that James Brown made one time. How much is it worth? Well, to somebody it might be worth a lot of money. And so that's what NFT can do in the metaverse, for musicians and for artists. So I would suggest that if you don't know a lot about it, do a deep dive and find out about NFTs and about decentralized music platforms, because that's kind of where music is going.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's huge for collaboration too, because you're talking about the commissions, around, and that's programmatically built in, right? It's when you mint these onto the marketplace will have a smart contract that says this owner has to, and you determine what that commission is.
Mm-hmm.
So, you want it to be fair, but also, that's a lot of power. That's up to you as the artist to say, this is what I think I deserve for this work. But it also allows more collaboration between artists without having somebody in the middle to facilitate that. So an example is there's another marketplace called Async Art, ASYNC, and Async Art allows multiple people to work or contribute to a single NFT. And then you can, on that layered piece, each receive commission on those future sales. So let's say I feature an artist on a song. I'll take 8%, they'll take 4%, you know what I mean? And then we're getting 12%, but I'm getting more of that commission than they are because they're just featured, but they're still getting their fair share too every time it gets used. And this can, or resold, but this can also relate to, let's say it gets used in a TV show or it gets used somewhere, right? So now you're dealing with royalties by smart contracts, right? And this is sort of the missing piece that a lot of people have been looking for in terms of creator economy, right? Because how do you as a creator ensure that you get everything you deserve, that you don't get taken advantage of, that you're not losing out? Well, at the end of the day, you need all these people around you, and you need these centralized institutions to guarantee it for you, to have the legal defense, to have all this stuff. But this allows the digital economy to have the logic built in. It's not confusing. It's not legalese, right? You're not having to read 300 pages of a contract, right? Like, you are understanding what the contract provides to you, the smart contract. It's super clear. This is what you get when you mint this NFT, when you provide it for your audience. And then this is how you collaborate on it too. And all of that is done without the help of anybody else. Right.
And, I was just thinking when you were saying that, and here again, folks, we're just scratching the surface of this. This is like when the internet was new. Nobody knew that we were going to use it to facilitate the metaverse. When it first came out, because back in the 80s, it wasn't a whole lot to do on there. I mean, you would go on and you could go on these different sites, and you could, if you work somewhere, you could say, I want to see what the pay scale is at Ford Motor Company, and somebody might post that. So it was more of just something to do that didn't really make money and didn't have a lot of utility. So, but it's morphed into something that's much, much more. And NFTs in the metaverse is they're in their infancy now. So this is something that's very new, that's going to be doing a lot. I was just thinking when you were talking, I said, well, say a sync license. This would be such a cool idea for a sync license. Alex has got a TV show, Alex and Friends, and it comes on 4 days a week, and it's syndicated in 4 different countries. And it gets replayed like 1,700 times a week. Now, if I, have an NFT with my song on it, I can construct my smart contract so I don't have to hire the Harry Fox agency to find my money and go after my money. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
To check your books. Every time that show would come on and that was used, I would get my money, cha-ching. It would go right in my wallet or not bank account. You want to have a crypto wallet, it would go right in my wallet, and I wouldn't have to worry about collecting my money, because collecting money can cost you half of what the money's worth, when you have to go after your money. So I see this as in terms of TV, sync licensing, movies and things of that nature. NFTs are going to change the game and the way creators get paid. And finally, the creators, the musicians, will be able to make a living. They'll get paid what they're worth, And then, the music management guys will have to learn how to play piano or something, I guess. I don't know, because you won't need as many of them, But
a lot of people don't realize that, crypto and crypto utilities like NFTs are not just about money, right? They're not just about, people getting rich. And when you read the headlines, it's like, oh, this person made billions of dollars, or this NFT sold for, this picture of a rock sold for $1 million, right? And that is so, it just misses the point, right? Because under the hood, this is an emerging technology, just like any other emerging technology, like,
Right.
AI, which is also sort of an umbrella term that's misunderstood. It's just like machine learning, which is like another, like there's all these technologies, even VR itself, virtual reality and AR, augmented reality. These things are emerging technologies. There's new Wi-Fi protocols that have entirely new ways of thinking about wireless technology in homes or in offices. And like all of these things are on par with each other, the same way that blockchain is, in terms of utilities that it provides beyond just the exchange of money. Of course, a lot of the first uses of blockchain deal explicitly with money, but it's so much more than that. The reality is that money is at the heart of capitalistic society,
Well,
right?
we live in a capitalistic
work.
society, so things are, if you can't make any money for curing cancer, nobody would work on a cure for cancer.
Right.
Somebody,
Yeah.
like I remember a few years back when they had hepatitis C was running rampant. There was no cure for it. And somebody said, if you could cure hepatitis C, you could charge $1,000 a pill and you can make $19 billion a year. And in about 6 months, 5 companies had a cure for it.
Right.
They said, we got to get a
And so,
yeah. Same thing with, same thing with insulin. Insulin was first invented. The guy that invented it wanted to be free.
Right. So there's antibiotics, things like that, things that are, those are necessities, they shouldn't be commoditized.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah, of course, right now in this economy and this structure, we worry about people getting paid, but there should never be a distraction. And I think this is where a lot of the media and the surface level understanding of this technology falls short, is that it only focuses on people getting rich and doesn't focus on the utility of what it accomplishes, right? What does it actually do? And I think that's why, our show is so important, because we really dig into like, what does it do, right? Why is this important to an artist? Why is it important to an audience who maybe feels disconnected from, I ask anybody, they don't feel as connected to artists or to music as they did probably 20, 30 years ago, right? And it's because the nature of that relationship has changed. You no longer anticipate an album, you no longer anticipate a show the same way, because you can just go on YouTube on your 80-inch TV and turn the lights off and put on an 8K video of a concert, right? Like, I mean, the reality is that we've lost the novelty of those relationships. And we've lost the novelty of those creator economies that existed so much more purely in a non-digital world, right? And so now that our world is digital, how do we recreate the magic of those human relationships, so those human experiences that obviously are valuable? The reason art has always been valuable, the reason music has always been valuable, is not because they make money as a money machine, but because people have spent money on them because they're so meaningful to them, right? And that's why this technology is meaningful, is it recreates the magic of that relationship in an equitable and secure and safe and meaningful way for all parties involved, which in this case, the two important ones are the artists and their audience.
Right. And I think, like you said, I think it does go a long ways towards reconnecting the artists and the audience, because as an artist, people have to, there's a discovery process that fans go through, when they discover a new artist. They say, oh man, if you heard so-and-so, if you heard Coldplay, says, yeah, man, I knew about Coldplay 6 months ago, and artists discover and create, stars and superstars, so I think this is sort of that, it enhances that discovery process too, in terms of getting to know the artists and really, because you don't really get to know the artist when you just see the music on YouTube.
Right.
Now you can make a little money with enough views, but it's not, the nature of the relationship is not like it was, like you said, when you actually discovered the artist and you got to, feel like you kind of knew the artist, and I think that's what it's getting back to. I kind of compare it to, I know when MP3s first came out, when MP3s were invented on little MP3 players, okay, then they went to the phones, and nobody really thought that digital music, it wasn't, you know, they didn't think digital music was going to be what it is today. You know, and now the metaverse has taken another technological jump. You know, and in technology, you have these things that kind of come together, and all of a sudden you have this leap. And it's like you have to start it, you know, it's like going from high school to college. Now you got to start from as a freshman all over again and learn the new, you know, and that's what kind of like what the metaverse is, you know. And you know, the musicians of, you know, moving forward are gonna, the ones that are gonna survive and be around and prosper are the ones that are gonna take advantage of this, you know, and the other ones will still be able to make a living, but probably not in the same way, because this, you know, the metaverse, music, NFTs, digital platforms, it sort of changed the nature of everything. You know, just like MP3s. You know, I remember Napster, when Napster first came out. I said, man, this is so cool. I can get any song I want for free, you know.
Right.
And then somebody said, oh no, you got to start paying for that, man, you know, because we got to pay the artists. That was the excuse, you know. Well,
Yeah, your ISP is going to send you a letter.
yeah, you just get
Yeah.
letters.
Comcast is going to be like, we're going to sue you and
Yeah, we're
turn
gonna
off your
sue
internet
you.
if you keep doing this. Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess they did go after a few people here and there just to
They did
kind of,
make a couple interesting examples of some average people who just wanted Smash Mouth on their computer. And
yeah, man.
sued
It
them
cost
for
us.
millions and millions. I mean, you know, lifetimes worth of money for
Yeah,
them.
yeah. So you know, it's worth, if you're in the music business, it's worth, you know, finding out about, you know, just like data, you know, data analytics. You know, it's like everything is data now. And I see the metaverse. I was thinking, you know, about data, you know, the way data is collected. Now imagine how data can be collected in a metaverse. I mean, that's really like scary if it's not controlled. You know what I'm saying?
Well, that
And
blockchain gives us that control, right? I mean,
right,
it's kind of like, so um, one of the fundamental gates that allows blockchain to be so secure is what's known as zero knowledge proofs. It's sort of like, let's say I want to prove to you that I have a certain object in my room. Well, I could send a picture of my whole room. Or I could let you walk into my room. And then you'd be like, all right, you have this object in your room. A zero knowledge proof is somehow me proving to you that I have that object in the room without you seeing the whole room, or you know what I mean? And so it's like I put a black box over the rest of the room and you just see the little hole of like where the thing is. You just see the thing,
you
right?
just see what you need to see. Yeah.
Right. And so that's part of the ownership, right? Is saying you can't do data mining on all of our stuff because there's nobody who has access to everybody's data.
Right.
I have access to my data, you have access to your data, they have access to their data. And anytime it's used, like when you want to when you want to update your OpenSea profile, when you want to like change your bio, your wallet opens up and it says, do you want to change this piece of information on your bio? And you're like, yes, sign. And that's you from the perspective of your wallet separate from OpenSea, making a decision for a little data change. So that's the kind of control that it gives you over your own data in terms of a consumer, right? And so that's why that relationship is so pure between you and the artist, is because the artist has that privacy and that control over their work and their data, and you have that privacy and that control over your like engagement in the ecosystem. And that's exactly how it should be, to be able to have the power of the things that you want to. Let's say I do want some algorithmic support for something, right? Let's say I'm looking for a job and I log onto a Web3 version of LinkedIn, like some new decentralized LinkedIn. Well, let's say there's a company looking for people who match my set of criteria. Well, I don't have to reveal that to them, all of my information. I might just get matched with them because I've agreed to sign in and I've agreed to sign over that amount of data just to make sure, zero knowledge proof, just to make sure that they can verify what they need to verify and I can verify what I need to verify about them. And then that facilitates relationship. And then each step after that, I sign over a little more, they sign over a little more, right? And then now you have a good relationship with a potential employer or something, right? That's how these things work, where now you're in complete control of how your data gets used.
And one of the things that happens is that when you go to say get a loan, or you go to do something or get married or whatever, they ask you for information that they don't really need.
Right.
I mean, they ask you for stuff that is none of their business, that they don't really need. All they need to know is you have enough money to pay back the loan, and you paid back your last one, and you have a 780 credit score. That's all they need to know. They don't need to know how long you've been on a job. They don't need, that's irrelevant. You know what I'm saying?
They don't even need to know exactly. They just need to know that the box is checked, right?
Yeah, they just get to know that you can verify.
That's the power of it. How many people give their social security numbers to sketchy landlords across the country to sign a lease? They don't know who this landlord is. That landlord could have anything processing in court of their own problems. And you're just gonna like, here's my social security number for you to run a background check and know everything about me. I mean, that's, there's
then he comes back and says, you checked out okay. And you just got out from doing life, so they don't really have the time. Most of the time they don't even
how do you check your landlord?
Yeah, they get your information, That's like, I'm always leery about giving my driver's license,
Yeah.
Like, what do you need all that information for? I can verify it on me, and the blockchain is one thing that I think will go a long way towards verification without you disclosing more than you really have to disclose.
Exactly.
And I think that's great too, but I think we're at I think it's going to be a great time for musicians, man. I think musicians will be able to put their music up, to create NFTs, put their music on a blockchain. And if you want to listen to Alex's new song, you have an account, and every time you listen to a song, it's 1/2 of 1 penny or something, and you might listen to it. I might listen to it 20 times, for 10 cents, and I don't want to listen anymore. Then in another month, I might want to listen to it 3 or 4 more times, but it's like pay as you go. And the smart contract would ensure that Alex receives all that money that he has coming, and there's no middleman,
Right.
because, there wouldn't, I guess you wouldn't really need a label to, because people discover your music, they have, Spotify and a lot of companies have what's called song vectors. And what they do is they say, well, a lot of Robert's fans, 62% of them are also Alex's fans. And Janice's fans have 40% of her fans in common with Robert and Alex. So why don't we get them all 3 to collab on a song? And that way, all 100% of the fans will like it. That's why when you go listen to a song, they say people that like this also like this, this, and this. And they're very similar songs, and those are called song vectors. And, what they do is a song vector is nothing but an algorithm. It's not like you need to really get charged money to use that. So you could have a song vector in a smart contract that said, well, if you like Alex's song, there's a 62% chance you'll like Robert's song.
Right.
And you probably like this song and this song and this song, so I don't know. I see that, music will probably, I don't want to say be one of the first frontiers that changes, but anytime you have something that makes $50 billion a year, somebody's going to look at how to kind of shift some of that money back to where it should be with the artist. And I think this is when you're going to see NFTs and the metaverse really start to take off.
So it's perfect timing. I mean, really, people are getting fed up with streaming services. Obviously, there's a lot of layers there that people are sick of.
And why do they need your social security number? You know what I'm saying?
The reality is, believe it or not, the metaverse is actually a new way of organically discovering things. Right now, a lot of our lives are curated. We don't realize it, but they're curated through algorithms, right? They're curated, and we've had lots of episodes on this, but our lives are curated by centralized black box algorithms that curate what we see and why. And it's not necessarily in our favor, right? And so discovery of new artists, a lot of the time, hasn't been our own organic discovery of it.
No,
Um,
it's been the
it's been
song vectors making suggestions to us.
exactly.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
imagine a metaverse, right, of the world. You're sort of just like walking around, you're meeting people, maybe some word of mouth happens. Or how did people used to discover new restaurants, right? They sort of just walk in one and give it a shot.
Yeah,
And
they walk in, yeah, yeah.
and so let's say you're sort of walking around a new neighborhood in the metaverse and you stumble into a coffee shop and there's a musician playing, and now you're exposed to this virtually. You didn't even have to go somewhere, but you're organically discovering things again in a very human way that's been recreated for the digital world. And also, if there are algorithms involved, like I said earlier, if you do want some algorithmic help in discovering new music on one of these decentralized platforms, the algorithm's visible. You know what the algorithm's doing. It's not just to make some centralized company ad revenue. It's truly there for the genuine human focused job of connecting you with the new music that you want, and also in favor equally of the artist getting exposed to new people, not for ad revenue, but because of the pureness and organicness of facilitating those relationships.
Right.
And
And
so
if you like, if you like the music, you know where you can go get it.
that's that's a huge improvement that it can facilitate that. So the reality is, a lot of people still don't seem to understand that this is where things are going. They sort of still think it's like an idea, but
Like, I don't use computers. I met a guy the other day who says, I don't use computers, man. I email. I said, just call me. I don't use that email text stuff. So,
but the reality is, if you don't like it, come up with what's next, right? If you don't like the reality is, this is where it's going.
That's where it's
and
going.
So if you don't like how it works, fix it. Figure out what's after that.
What you gave was just a brilliant example of how someone could get their music out there.
Mm-hmm.
They could get with someone who owns a coffee shop in the metaverse and say, hey, I'd like to play music in your coffee shop.
Right.
Now, someone may go to the coffee shop to get a coffee recipe in a metaverse, or they may be looking for some, they may be on a date in the metaverse. And they may go in his coffee shop and they may hear the music and they like the music. And then the artist ends up making money. And they really didn't come in there for the music, but he just happened to be in a coffee shop.
Right.
So there are three reasons. He could have come for the music, the coffee, or just out bumping around, like you said, out like we used to do.
Right.
And like you say, it's things that are new often, seem strange.
Mm-hmm.
Like because they're always saying the ways of a wise man often seem strange to the eyes of a fool. So a lot of things there, when they first come out, they seem, that's the internet. You really had, if you go back to before the internet, you really had to kind of wrap your head around that.
Yeah.
Imagine if you were someplace you had never seen a cell phone. It's like, it was like, I remember when I was a kid was Star Trek, and they had the tricorders, where the tricorder is a MRI, a magnetic resonance imaging machine.
Yep.
That uses triangulation to look inside your body. And they had to try, it was an idea, but nobody had actually figured out how to do it, and then they had the flip phones, and now all that stuff, somebody knew, oh, this would be a great idea. But now all that stuff is, it's gone beyond that, and it keeps going. That's what technology does, and that's why you have to kind of like stay out in front. What we try to do on the DeFi Collective, we try to bring you things that are cutting edge, and we like to let you know what's coming and what's happening, because every time we do a show, we have to research it. I end up learning so much myself, that's just kind of cool, and it helps keep me, like out front, and that's what happens when you hang around with younger people. And quit hanging around, all you people over 40, quit hanging around with your buddies, man, because they want to tell you anything new. You got to hang around with some under 30s and under 40s, but it's this is kind of like where things are going. If you're a musician and you want to be relevant, and I would imagine most of the kids kind of know this. The 12 and 13, 14-year-old musicians, they're not going to have a problem with it.
Oh yeah. For them, there's not even a line there, right? This is just
not even a line. Yeah.
Part of their digital experience.
Right. And but here again, the DeFi Collective at gmail.com is our email. And we encourage you to, write us and let us know things that you'd like to hear about. Because, we usually do shows and respond to what people say they wanted to know about. And somebody said, I forget the same quote. They said, what is this decentralized music thing or something like that? So we said, well, maybe we'll do a show and talk about decentralized music platforms and things of that nature. But hopefully we've enlightened some people. And if we didn't, let us know what you'd like to hear about, and if you would like to be on the show and you can pass a test that Alex gives you, then you're welcome to come on the show. Yeah, but again, YouTube, the DeFi Collective. We're also on Let's Talk Radio with a Y, RADYO. Like and subscribe to our channel. And, we look forward to, we appreciate you letting us into your homes. We appreciate your time. Unfortunately, ours is about up. But I would say that, musicians, get on top of this NFT thing, this metaverse thing. This is where it's going. And it's there already. It's just a lot of people don't know about it. And hopefully next week, we can talk about something else that's cutting edge. Alex, any closing thoughts?
No, yeah, I think we really drilled into an interesting subject because it starts focusing on specifics of things people understand about culture, right, and recognize about culture and why this technology is meaningful to it. So yeah,
it may sound a little weird, but it's here to stay. Kind of like computers. They're not going away. I know some people wish they would, but they're here to stay. And this is just another. We talked last week about Web3. This is Web3, the metaverse.
Right. And we give a lot of background, right? Some of it's technical, but when you go to a website like Audius, right, one of those streaming platforms we talked about, Audius doesn't talk about crypto or NFTs in their above the fold part of the website at all.
Right,
so a lot of this technology is seamlessly being integrated into your lives and you don't realize yet. Your banking institutions, everything is starting to migrate towards decentralized technology and blockchain as a means of settling things and verifying things, and it's super useful. Why it's useful to you to know about this earlier on is so that you can be a part of adoption, right? And you can start understanding it and also have a voice as a part of I'm a user of this. I have a seat at the table, and this is where I'd like to see the technology go to help me as a business owner, help me as an artist, or whatever your situation is. And that helps people who are building it know who they're building it for.
Yeah, data analytics, surveillance capitalism went on for a long time before people even knew what it was and knew why you had a microphone in your Nest thermostat. Why the hell would they put a microphone on? Well, the data is worth money. They come out.
Had a lot of intimate moments with Google.
They monetize the data. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So, stay on top of things and let us know if there's something you'd like for us to cover. And we'd love to do a deep dive for you. So until next week, have a great week and wear your mask if you believe the virus is real. If not, don't wear it. See you later.
Have a good one.